It's departure day from Antarctica, and our A340 is inbound to collect us and bring us back to Africa. Or is it?
So the wind's blown all the traction off the runway, so that's diverting back to Cape Town.
Guess not. So we've come a little bit earlier than planned to meet the jet, or the heavy as they call it here, which is due in a couple of hours, maybe an hour and a half. But the wind is picking up over here, and one of the reasons they brought that flight in earlier than expected, it was going to be originally tomorrow, was because the weather was going to get worse, and they have all these moving parts they have to sort out. They have to figure out various parties, new groups coming in, there's a day trip, the greatest day, there's people going to the different camps, and we need to get out, and they're trying to do all of that as close to the original schedule as possible with minimal disruption. So it's a big, complicated situation of many moving parts, and they of course want to be completely safe. They want to make sure the runway is all good to go for the big jet that's coming in. It's on its way still, visibility is good, but the wind is picking up, and that can mean that the runway can become unsuitable for landing the big jet. So that's what they're figuring out now, trying to, I guess, test the runway surface with the vehicles that determine the friction levels on the runway, and seeing what they can do to the runway to keep it in good shape for the heavy to land. So I'm going to go take a walk now and see what I can see.
So that's diverting back to Cape Town. So we'll be here for like 1 or 2 more nights, and they'll reassess the weather and hopefully bring the plane back. It all depends on weather. It's all going to depend on weather.
You expecting bad weather tomorrow?
I'm not sure on the weather, to be honest.
So the airplane just diverted back to Cape Town. It was just an hour out from landing here. It was not safe. Possibly until tomorrow, possibly an extra day, because the weather's supposed to be bad tomorrow as well. So that's an interesting one, but a very Antarctica experience for sure.
This is when you cut the YouTube video and you're like, next episode is an extra 2 days. What do we do? Do we see the penguins? I don't know.
That's why there was no one in the
Within
runway.
an hour, you know?
Yeah, they already knew. Now we got to find the Airbus on Flight Radar 24.
That was classic.
I mean, I love it, to be honest. This is part of traveling here, and like we're stuck in such a cool destination.
Alright, well that's it. Staying here, it looks like 2 more nights, which is not the worst thing. It's amazing looking at it on Flight Radar. I'm seeing that it actually turned around just at the edge of Antarctica itself, so they were really almost here when they made the decision to turn around, and it was the right thing to do. The crosswinds were over the limit, the friction was too low for a safe landing, so it was obviously the thing they had to do, even though that's a painful decision for the captain, for all the passengers. Of course, they don't want to fly another 4 or 5 hours back to Cape Town. They didn't get anywhere, but it is really impressive how everything is kept so safe. How this is part of what makes the aviation industry so safe, is that above all, the choice is made for maximum safety. And the captain would never put the aircraft in danger and try it out anyway, despite all the inconvenience this means. Everybody has their schedules thrown off. We stay here extra days. Those who are going to come here don't know when they're going to arrive, maybe in 2 days. But it's also how it goes with Antarctica, and it's kind of what you sign up for when you go on one of these trips. So for us, it's extra fun because we get to stay an extra, looks like 2 nights now. It's another beautiful day out at the Wolf's Fang runway, and this whole complex here. It's really amazing. It's all centered around this blue ice runway where you can land a big jet like we did, and like we're hoping we're going to see later on, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, we'll see. And there's also a skiway for the smaller aircraft, Basslers and the Twin Otters. And then you have this whole complex staff, comms box, all the ground equipment needed to greet the A340, offload it of passengers and goods, reload it. And then you have these little transit tents where we're staying here, which is for this eventuality when guests come in or are going out on the jet and they get into a situation where they can't move on to one of the camps the camp where we were, about a half-hour flight out to the northeast, Wichita, and then there's the Echo camp, which is just a quick drive up here. So it happens sometimes that winds out there won't allow for a flight to Wichita, for example, and then the guests coming in off the A340 will sleep here for however long it takes. And that's how it is, the unpredictable nature of Antarctica and its aviation. But it's amazing how they built this whole operation here with all these professionals from around the world who are here to make sure everything runs smoothly like clockwork, and with all the moving parts taken into account, everybody that needs to be everywhere, all the planes that need to be wherever they're going, out to the penguins, out to the camps, down to the South Pole. It is just stunningly complicated, and they make it work even when there's disruptions like this. You know, they're having to pivot and make things work. They've arranging activities for us who are stuck here for an extra day or two, and they have to sort out the food. Of course, there's all sorts of different aspects to it. It's all just very impressive. Today, what we're waiting for is news about when the A340 is going to come back down for another try. They're going to be looking at weather. They're going to be taking into account the fact that the pilots, the crew from that flight, have to rest 15 hours. So the earliest it could depart, since it landed about 4 a.m. just before Cape Town time, would be 7 p.m. Cape Town time. And that would put it down here roughly 11 p.m. midnight, and then depending on various factors, we'd be leaving maybe in the middle of the night. But they said, who knows if that's going to happen? Depends on weather, depends on all kinds of other considerations. So we're just waiting to hear. I think they're in a meeting now. And in the meantime, I want to take the opportunity to go around and check out this operation a little more, check out the piston bullies they use to groom the runway, talk to some of the people who do the comms, and run this whole operation. There's a few key people who have to make the call about when it's okay to launch that flight from the Cape Town side, and make the call, give the information about runway conditions here so that the captain of the flight can decide whether it's safe to land. And it's all just a fantastically well-oiled, impressive operation with a high level of safety in one of the most remote places and unforgiving places really on the planet. Weather-wise, it's just on another level. We have nice weather now compared to most of the year, and we have constant light, but still highly unpredictable. Things can get crazy really quick.
Yeah, so we fly to ops, we do a lot of weather observations, and then we talk to the planes as well. So we on the radio to them before and after they land and take off. Other than that, we also communicate around camp. But on a quiet day like today, we're not very busy, no flying, but yesterday was hectic. Actually, we do have half hourlies from 2 hours before they leave Cape Town. So we're sending them constantly, we're sending them weather. And then
including like the runway conditions and stuff?
No, that's only twice. So we do, so 2 runway reports and then half hourly weather.
At what point do you have comms with the jet?
I think as soon as they sort of reach the continent.
Yeah, somewhere coming over the ice shelf. Yeah, our antenna is not the strongest on top of the comms box, so yeah, it's not unlimited, but when they're up at cruising altitude, they've got pretty good range, so we can reach them over the ice shelf. Can't remember how far it is to the coast, do you know?
It's about an hour from landing.
Before that, are you talking to them via ACARS or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we get in touch with them via AirCars. Generally, it's just the weather. But yeah, yesterday we had to get in touch with them via sat phone to speak to our guys who are in the cabin and speak to the captain as well.
It was looking pretty difficult, and we were hoping it would get better, but it just got worse.
Yeah.
No, big crosswinds. We were sitting like way above 20 knots, 25, and they just weren't happy with that.
Yeah. Is it usually a crosswind here?
Yeah.
Yeah, the runway isn't quite into the prevailing wind, just because of the crevasse fields and a few other reasons. Yeah, they couldn't quite get it into the prevailing wind, so it depends on the friction that we can get out of the runway, how much crosswind they're allowed to take with that. And yesterday it was not close enough to their limits.
Gotcha, so friction determines crosswind limits.
It varies how much friction you have.
Yeah. Do you have a standard vehicle for testing the friction with the fifth wheel and everything?
Yeah, so we take the fire truck out, and with the little yellow box, we take that and get, I think it's 3 readings every 500 meters for the left hand side and then for the right hand side as well, and take an average and a lowest value and then give that to the plane and they make their decision.
Is this runway orientation?
No, that north-south, yeah.
The line we see there, just...
And then there's the wind direction.
Шкипер, вам прием. Саш, скажи Эльвире, что радар готов.
Oh, so you have the different aircraft marked here with little magnets.
Give us a better idea of where we're going and what we're doing. You can see we've got Fang here with the Traverse. So they're soon to leave and they'll drive up to FT83. So we keep track of where they are. They give us like reports, and Artemy keeps us updated on where they are. And then with the various aircraft, we try and keep up to date with where they are. And it's just nice to be able to see if they're going to divert with weather, where other stations are around with them, and where we can get them to divert to.
Yeah.
We've also done some work earlier on in the season with Troll and Newmeyer, transferring some of their scientists. And so nice to be able to kind of build that mental picture of where those planes are going, what they're doing.
Nice.
We also did Halley, which is a much longer flight, but we had to take much more fuel out of Newmeyer and refuel out of them, which is a bit more difficult because it's another national program, so we have to pay for their fuel, and then fuel's pretty expensive once you get it to Antarctica, so trying to work out an agreement between them. That's Artemy. He gets sad, so we have to put him in the pole of inaccessibility, and then he cheers up over there when he's by himself.
That's Newmeyer, the German station at Atka Bay. And there's a webcam that updates, and they've got a big door here. So we know when they close their door, the weather's not great.
I found myself working in the mountains in New Zealand. One year I'd applied to be a park shaper for terrain parks, building the jumps. The grooming manager came back to me and said, go and get your wheels, tracks and rollers licence, which is what you need to drive a PistenBully, and so I went and got that, and they gave me a job as a rookie. And I'd sort of expressed interest in working in Antarctica because I'd put it out into the world that I wanted to come down here. This opportunity came about, so the call came out, I applied. And then fast forward 7 seasons and I'm still here, and I'll continue to keep coming back here as long as they'll have me. This place challenges you like no other. I love the cold, I run hot, I'm thermally efficient, so being down here I'm quite well suited to the environment. Yeah, it's tiring, it's fatiguing, it's challenging, but it's so rewarding in its own way. When you're here you can't wait to go home, but when you're at home you can't wait to come back here. So it's one of those bittersweet sort of places. I am the runway manager of Fang, so I coordinate and commission all the internal flights as far as pole flights, penguin flights, and get people to where they need to be. We're absolutely blessed with the fact that the gradient and the blue ice exposure that's here is perfect for a runway to land a plane on, and the weather here is generally pretty benign. Grooming, when we turn up at the start of the season, all the ice is sun cupped, so you get these little golf ball divots. So first port of call is to remove those divots with the PistenBullies, and it takes a few hours of grooming to do that. So we've got 2 PistenBully 300 polars that do that, fitted with a blade and a tiller on the back, and the tiller has 2 drums that can spin at a high RPM with sharp teeth on it, and then it's shaving the ice and producing material, and then putting it out through the back of these yellow mats that leave corduroy. Once we've removed the sun cupping, we then continue grooming to make material and leave the corduroy. The process, the idea behind that is we're making a base flat pavement and then producing material and having a new pavement put on top. So we need cold temperatures and material for it to stick, and that's where we get our friction. So you imagine like a flat surface with 20 mil of shaved snow / ice on top. Once that binds, that's where you get the grip. So for runway friction here, we're aiming for anything over 0.3. All season we've been getting 0.4s, which is the equivalent to Heathrow Airport with 2 millimeters of rain on it. So we're getting good friction here. Winds and sun will ablate away the grooming material, and unfortunately there's not really a hell of a lot we can do with that. It is one of the challenges that we face, and warmer temperatures as well, and we just have to adapt to those. We either change our flight times or We groom at night and we switch to night flights, night arrivals for those colder temperatures.
Because you don't want that melted.
Nah, you don't want it melted. And if the pavement that you've made isn't cold enough, it's not going to bind to the blue ice glacier below it, so then you get things sliding around a bit. So we need those cold temperatures to bind it and time for it to set up.
And when you talk about sort of crosswind limitations, is that's affected by the friction reading, or is it's a kind of a set?
It's a bit of both, depending on the wind direction and the amount and the friction. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. You can add cloud into that as well, crosswinds, and the friction coefficient on the runway as well.
So you have to have kind of right visibility, right wind conditions, the friction has to be there, all these things have to line up.
And the temps. Temps is another thing you can put in, lots of variables to be juggling.
Come and be behind the scenes at one of the most unique airports in the world.
This is Alona. She's a travel content creator and she's been on this trip with us the past week, and it's been a real pleasure getting to know her. But I also wanted to include her in this video because it turns out she is into airplanes, and it's not something I knew about you.
Do you want to see my tattoo?
Yes.
It's an A350. You see the little Batman?
Amazing, and I think she has more cred than me in the Av Geek department now, because I do not have an airplane tattoo. It's something I got to work on. However, I can give you a little flight radar keychain.
Thank you. Oh, this is the best. I'm gonna put this on my bag right now.
Amazing.
Thank you.
This is actually a special generator over here powering the runway lights. And that's a pretty new development, I think. As I recall, the captain on the last flight was telling me that that is something they didn't have before, but now they have quite nice lights for the approach. So that's pretty cool. Totally fogged lens is what you get, going from the cold out there to very warm and cozy tent. You see how the weather changes constantly. It's actually quite warm now. The wind died down. It's pretty comfy walking around. Don't even have to worry about the audio now. And they're still out there grooming with the PistenBullies. I think we're gonna get a ride on one now. While we wait for the one that we're gonna ride on, which is down at the end of the runway, I'm gonna go hang out by the stairs that they eventually will push up to the A340 to get people off and on later. It looks like now 7 a.m. tomorrow is when the 340 is gonna arrive. All being well, I'll definitely be up to catch that. And then we'll depart about 3 hours after that tomorrow. So not a bad deal in the end. Get a couple extra days here, and I still make my flight back home, which is scheduled for the following day. Fingers crossed anyway, you never know. Like I said, this is Antarctica. As this whole visit is coming to an end, and we're due to leave here probably tomorrow, we'll see if the jet can land. Seems like it will be able to though. Beautiful weather right now. I'm trying to kind of come up with a summary of the whole experience. Overall thoughts, some sort of closing thing to leave you with, and it's really difficult here. The only thing I can say is that I can see why people talk about getting addicted to Antarctica. It's something of the same thing I have with the far north, the Arctic, the other side of the planet. These places that are so remote with few inhabitants, and the inhabitants who are here live a very difficult, rough life, often isolated, but in these starkly beautiful, unbelievable landscapes. Massive ice fields, craggy mountains. It puts you directly in contact with nature in a way that if you're moving around the civilized, populated world, you never get. You know, I don't care how many forests you walk through, natural reserves you visit. You always know that there's a town or a city just a few kilometers away. All the things, all the comforts of modern life that you need are not far. And if those aren't there, or if something goes wrong there, there's a backup. You can buy another one. You can order it online, have it within a day from Amazon. I think it's something about coming to these remote edges of the earth, toward the poles, where you get what it feels like to not have that, and to realize how exposed to the elements you suddenly can become as a human. And I think it's a really valuable experience to have. For me anyway, it's something I really value, being able to be put in touch with that, this environment that will rapidly kill you if you don't have the right protection, the right tent, the right clothes, the right transport. That's something pretty profound. And at the same time that it makes you think of how violent and unforgiving the earth is, it puts you in this kind of direct relationship, this direct contact with nature, the natural world. And you feel its sort of harmony and perfection at the same time, even as it's trying to kill you. And this whole experience with White Desert has been all the more surreal because of the level of care and luxury and comfort you have at the same time as being in this unbelievable, otherworldly, lunar landscape where nobody lives anywhere. There are no towns, there are no roads, there are no permanent inhabitants. I couldn't have asked for a more profound experience than coming to Antarctica in this way. And I certainly think I'm going to be back.
Out of the runway, and then I can pick them up. Cool. I will tell them to come back to the start of the runway or the comms box.
So you started off doing mountain ski areas?
Yeah, funnily enough, the same place Ryan used to work at.
Okay.
That's how I sort of knew Ryan and heard about this place.
Cool.
It was my first season doing grooming in New Zealand. And he said, "Oh, would you be interested in a season down there?" And I said, "By all means."
Yeah.
I'm a bit green, but I'm really keen to do it.
Yeah.
I've not really looked back since. It's challenging but rewarding would be how I describe the job.
Yeah. How long is a typical shift doing this then? Like when do you get a break?
Oh, depends on what type of day I'm doing. If it's the runway, you just keep going until you're done or you leave and stop.
Yeah.
Other days, you up at 7 in the morning, 6:30, just keep going at 6 or 7 at night. And if the demand is there, like today, for instance, then it'll be a late night. Sometimes we'll do overnight shifts.
Yeah.
And then on here you've got all your speeds and other information. Trying to get the tiller to go as fast as possible. Process the snow faster. While still being able to go at slow enough speed. And what we do is we do a little pass through here, just as a reference point, so we can see where we've been and where we've not been. And you get yourself lined up when you follow your mate's pass, basically. Normally what we do is you see out half in this pass and half in that one.
Yeah.
Which means it gets done twice, but you're not going in the exact same pass the exact same way, else it can leave little ruts. There's a turning bay on either side, so if they manage to land and slow down early enough, they can do their turnaround at the 2K and taxi back in. Good. Save them a bit of time, bit of fuel. Otherwise, sometimes they go all the way to the end, so they're 3K turning back. Once we're done here on the runway, then the turning bays, we'll hit the apron. It's about 200 square meters.
Copy, I'm pretty much on the edge. Yeah, so.
That means we've triple passed from that side to that side. Everything has been gone over 3 times now, which is pretty much where the plane will land. So from now on we can start just double passing all the way to the edge.
So you give it extra where the touchdowns are?
Yeah, because that's where the most friction is needed, right at the centre. If they need all the friction at the edge of the runway, we've got a problem. The plane shouldn't be over that side.
Yeah.
But it's still good to cover the whole runway.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think in the next 4 or 5 hours, that'll be the runway done. An hour and a half to 2 hours getting the turning bays done. But maybe a solid hour back on the apron. It's still a lot of work. But yeah, we'll get it done. Every 150 meters, we'll basically tap on the brakes.
Yeah.
And there's an instrument that gets placed in the bottom of the footwell on the passenger side. It measures, I'm guessing the inertia essentially, that braking force that's applied. It reads out the numbers. He does it every 150 meters and all the way down one way and the whole way down the other side, plus each turning back.
We're now at the very southern end of the runway and had the realization that this is the furthest south on the globe that I've ever stood, because everything else has been back up that way. The camp here, Echo, which way? Beyond here is South Pole, just a couple thousand kilometers further. 7-hour flight. Hope to do that one day. It's not going to be this time, but definitely on the list to get that done. Flying down that way in a Bachelor must be amazing. So this is the PistenBully, which they use to groom this runway for hours and hours before every arrival of the big jet, the heavy as they call it, and also after, to make sure that this surface remains ideal with some snow on top, grooved snow to create friction so that the jet can stop. And it's a constant operation. They have to work long hours, sometimes overnight, and whenever they need to, whenever they get the call, they're out here for hours and hours getting it done. Pretty cool chance to ride in one of these. Kind of a nice counterpoint to some of the other snow removal videos I've done. It's reminiscent, it feels the same being up there. Very different machine though, and a really different runway that they're working with.
It's constant learning. Constant. But the basics of the runway, definitely a couple of weeks. But I feel like it's always slightly different each runway every time you groom it, or different conditions. And grooming on a whole, you definitely never stop learning grooming. Yeah. There's been a lot more things I've tried while I've been here. You're not always grooming, you're sort of using the machine in very close spaces next to some pods when we're cleaning everything out, or when we're building structures, containers for instance. You got to pull and polish all those around, get them all lined up, get all the ground level and put them together. We're meant to be lifting, I probably won't be doing it, but we lift a roof on top of the containers soon, and that means the guys can work in there in worse conditions. Yeah, they're a lot more sheltered. Also pushing the stairs up to the plane, which is quite fun. Every time slightly nerve-wracking, but quite fun. You realise you're the first guy in and you're the last guy out on the runway.